Hello, folks. Welcome back to our Sky Tonight program. This is Seth Mayo, curator of astronomy for the Lohmann Planetarium at MOAS. And in this edition of the program, we are covering the dates of October 24th through October 30th. We're going to start by talking about that gorgeous and breathtaking image of the Pillars of Creation that was recently released by the James Webb Space Telescope. I'll show you where it is in the sky and what this new image looks like. Then we're going to talk about some of those wonderful fall constellations that are now rising in the northeast. We'll mention just a few of them that are in that part of the sky. And we'll end with a look at Mars now rising into our evening sky. So let's get to it. At this time of year, if you catch the southwest in the early part of the evening, maybe from about 7:45 to even about 9 p.m., depending on your latitude, if you're farther south, you have a better view of this area, you can still see the brightest part of our Milky Way and a leftover constellation of Sagittarius, which looks like a teapot. And the reason why I want to talk about this area again is because there's an amazing nebula embedded inside this part of our Milky Way, and it's a very famous nebula. So we're going to zoom in here in Stellarium to give us a better view of what I'm talking about. As we do so, you're going to see these clouds of gas come into view. This is the disk of our galaxy. And as we zoom in, you'll see these kind of pinkish areas of hydrogen gas. These are big, large regions of gas where stars are forming. And one particular one is quite famous. As we zoom in here, we're going to make our way to something called the Eagle Nebula. And it sort of looks like an eagle if you think that this is the head of the eagle, maybe some wings right out here, so maybe the head of the eagle is kind of bowing towards you a little bit. That's sort of what I see, at least, for the Eagle Nebula. And embedded inside this huge complex of gas is a really interesting feature right in here, famously known as the Pillars of Creation. Now, the image you see here is from some telescope. I'm actually not quite sure, but let's take a look at the new image released by the James Webb Space Telescope. This new space-based observatory we've been talking about quite a bit that sees in the infrared part of the spectrum, helping us to see the deepest parts of our universe with this beautiful clarity and very high resolution. And here is that image. It is absolutely gorgeous and vibrant and very, very detailed. And every time I see the full image here, I think it looks like a giant space claw with like 3 fingers kind of reaching out into space. Now keep in mind, this is about 6,500 light years away. The light has taken about that many years, 6,500 years to travel from these pillars of gas and dust to reach our observatories near the Earth, like the James Webb Space Telescope. And this is one of the best images we've ever captured of the star-forming region. We know that there are stars that are actively being born or have already been created inside these giant pillars. Some of the gas envelops in these knots and nodules that under their own gravity start to compress into new stars. And we found a tremendous amount of that happening here, and the new stars pushing the gas away, eating it away, creating this really dynamic and interesting environment. And here is a comparison between the Hubble Space Telescope image on the left from 2014 and the James Webb Space Telescope image on the right that just was released. You can see the difference. Now, the Webb image allows you to kind of pierce through the veil of that gas and dust and look kind of inside of it, almost making it sort of invisible or transparent in a way. It reveals some things we hadn't seen before. And on the left, with the Hubble image, you're seeing the pillars of creation in mostly visible light. And so the gas is more opaque and you can't see things through it as much. And each of these images offers something different. But that James Webb image really expands our view of this. And as we kind of pan across it with this very high resolution version, you can see all the intricate features of the gas. Some of this gas is being pushed on by the stellar winds from stars. Sometimes you see a bluish glow around it, and that's from the evaporation of the gas from the very hot stars outside the image that are eating it away and evaporating the material. Sometimes you'll even notice these really bright red regions that really shine, and that is showing us stars that are ejecting material. That material is moving very quickly, running into the gas in the pillars and creating these shock waves, and it really energizes the hydrogen. It lights up tremendously, especially in the near infrared, which is what this is captured in, giving us these interesting colors, especially of that red and crimson that really glows in the image. It's just gorgeous to see all these features. You could spend forever just looking at this up close. studying all little details, discovering new things inside of it. And this is a really important image to help us understand the process of stellar birth, how stars live through their lives, and even die and influence their environments around them. So it really gives us a good picture of stellar evolution. And here's a video that just allows us to appreciate the nebula and its beauty without me talking. So enjoy. Now, at this time of the year, of course, we know that it is the fall. Of course, you notice that, at least here in the northern hemisphere, because maybe leaves are falling, the temperatures are cooling down a bit, our nights are getting a little bit longer, and of course, fall officially started in September for the equinox. But for me, I really know that it's fall when I see certain stars and constellations rising in the eastern and northeastern part of the sky. And so that's what we're looking at right now. And this is a great time of year to start seeing these wonderful stars you primarily find in the fall and even the winter sky. And these are some famous ones I've talked about many times before in this program. I always like to start with a group of stars that's very noticeable in the sky, and it looks like a letter W. As many of you probably know, these are the stars of a constellation called Cassiopeia. It's a queen from Greek mythology. It's supposed to be a queen sitting on her throne that we find right there. So Cassiopeia is quite well known. And not far from Cassiopeia, a little bit to the south of it, you may find the stars of what looks like a big square, a rectangle. Those are the stars of Pegasus, the winged horse. That square is called the Great Square of Pegasus. I'll draw the lines first of this flying horse. You got the body, the head that kind of sticks out here, and the legs right there. Of course, Pegasus is another famous character from Greek mythology that we find there. And if you find those two constellations, sort of in between them are some stars, are not as bright as these two groups of stars, but is famous nonetheless. And those are the stars right around here that form Andromeda, that princess and the daughter of Cassiopeia. I'll draw her, we find right there, and actually Andromeda, as we've mentioned before, is connected to Pegasus. They share a star called Alpheratz, which we find right there, relatively bright star between those two constellations. Turning Andromeda on, you'll see Andromeda as a princess was chained to a rock, sacrificed actually by her parents to a giant sea monster. It wasn't really a nice situation. And what is so great about Andromeda is that you can possibly find the Andromeda Galaxy, our largest galactic neighbor in our local group of galaxies. That's about twice the size of our galaxy and about 2.5 million light years away. It's a great little fuzzy object you can see through a telescope or binoculars, and it's great to know it's this immense galaxy in our local neighborhood of galaxies you can find there. Of course, it's named Andromeda because it's inside the Andromeda constellation. And the one other fall constellation that kind of ties this group together is another group of stars. You might have to stay up a little bit later to see more of it, and those are the stars of Perseus, who actually saves Andromeda from being chained to a rock, saves her from the sea monster Cetus that is also in the sky as well. And every time I look for Perseus, he actually looks like a backwards lowercase letter y. So let's turn his lines on so you can see what I'm talking about in there, and then we'll turn on the picture of Perseus. He's actually holding Medusa's head because he slayed Medusa, the Gorgon, with scary snake hair from those ancient stories from long ago. And so Perseus and Andromeda actually fall in love from those ancient stories. They're all kind of connected together, which makes sense because they're close to each other in the sky. As we continue to look in this area with those fall constellations and just stay up a little bit later, we're actually going to move ahead to maybe about, I'd say about 10:30 this evening. And by then, in most latitudes here, you'll start to see a great view of Mars. It's now just entered our evening sky, or at least a part of the evening that more people may be awake to see. And so there it is. You can see Mars, the reddish glow of the red planet. Now, of course, two other planets have been dominating our evening sky, Jupiter and Saturn, that have recently gone through opposition, which means they were closest to Earth, and they still shine really bright. You can still see them for most of the night. But Mars is actually getting closer and closer to us because opposition of this planet will happen in December of this year. This is such a great planet to find in the sky because you know that we have rovers on the surface, spacecraft flying around it. We're looking for life on this planet that may have supported it maybe 3 to 3.5 billion years ago. It's a very special place, and hopefully we'll be able to send people there one day. Mars is a smaller planet, half the size of Earth, so sometimes a little more difficult to see through a telescope, but it's still worth it because on a clear enough night you can actually see some features on Mars and even the polar ice caps, which can look really cool. So hopefully you get a chance to see Mars rising out of the east a little bit later this evening as this sort of red, jewel-like, non-twinkling looking star in the sky. It looks really great, and it just reminds you of some of the other rocky inner solar system planets that are nearby to us. Hey, that's it for another edition of our Sky Tonight program. Thank you very much for tuning in. And if you happen to find yourself in Daytona Beach, please stop by the Museum of Arts and Sciences. We have so many great exhibits on display. There's something for everyone if you have a chance to visit us. If you want any more information about what we're doing, our exhibits, and anything else going on at the museum, please check out our website and tune in to our various social media channels. We're posting some great content from all around the museum and for different subjects and topics. It's a lot of fun to tune in. So we hope to see you back here again. Take care, and of course, happy stargazing.